Okay, this is the video for Word Module 1, and there are two parts to this project that we're going to complete together in class. And the first part asks us to start with a blank Word document. So there's no file that you need to open from our Canvas course. You just need to open up Microsoft Word and start with a blank document. So it's going to look like this when you get it open. Word Module 1 is pretty basic and covers mostly basic concepts in Microsoft Word, many of which you probably already know. But just to kind of review quickly, we will cover how to create a blank document and save it, enter text and correct errors using spelling and grammar check. We will learn how to use autocomplete and autocorrect. We will learn about adjusting paragraph spacing and line spacing and changing the margins of the paper. We'll learn how to create an envelope and type correctly formatted business letter. We will also use the editor pane to make some corrections to our document. We'll change the page orientation to landscape and portrait. We'll change the font size and color and type of font. We'll apply text effects and align the text either center or align it to the right or align it to the left. We'll insert a paragraph border and add shading to the paragraph, add a bulleted list, add a picture, and we will edit the picture a little bit. We'll also show you how to use the help command in Microsoft Word. So those are all of the concepts that we will cover in Word Module 1 of our textbook. So the first step is to open up a blank Word document like you see on my screen. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to save it. So the first thing that you need to do is to click the File button and go to Save As. At this point, you need to decide where you would like to save your files for this class. I know we talked a little bit in class about how you could use OneDrive if you had that set up, or you could use a flash drive as well. And I know some of you were using a flash drive and others of you were going to use OneDrive. So at this point, you would determine the location that you would like to save your file. For the purposes of this class, I'm just going to save mine to the desktop because I'm not going to keep them. The textbook tells you to save it as np_wd_1_campos letter, all one word, and then hit save. Now you're ready to go. The first time you save a document, you need to do a file save as, because that allows you to select a name for the file and a location where you'd like to save the file. After you've done that, then as you make changes to the document, you can just hit the save, file save, and it will save all of your current changes. You can also, I'm going to expand my screen here just a little bit if I can. You can also hit the little floppy disk. If I'm able to move my screen up, yeah. You can see there's a little floppy disk up at the top of your screen. That's the save shortcut. You can also click that and it will save any of your changes as you go along. The first thing that we need to do is we are going to create a business letter, a professionally formatted business letter. And the first part, the top of the business letter, is always the date. So we are going to start typing the word February. And I typed a little bit too fast, so you didn't get a chance to see the auto complete, but you will see as you start typing the word, Microsoft Word pops up a screen tip that allows you to quickly finish the word. So if you just press enter, it will complete the word for you. Then you can finish typing the date. If it was the current date, it would auto-complete that as well. A screen tip would pop up. I'm not using the current date right now, so that's not going to pop up. But if I were using the current date, it would pop up and I could auto-complete that as well. After I type the date, I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard twice. And I'm going to type what's called the inside address. So this is the address of the person that is receiving the letter. I'm hitting enter between each line. Ooh. Sometimes I make little, like when I start typing fast, I make little mistakes. I have to fix them. After you type the inside address, hit enter, and we're going to type the salutation next, which is the greeting of the letter. I type the greeting with a colon at the end, press enter, and then I'm going to type the body of the letter. Enclosed, you will find the water quality pamphlet we discussed. I hope the young people, and if you make mistakes and you don't want to correct them as you go, we are going to use spell check anyway, so we can correct them later using spell check. If you're following along in our textbook, this is the review problem at the end of the chapter. So if you would like to get the step-by-steps that I'm following, you just need to pop open our textbook and click on the review, which is usually to the bottom part of the table of contents, and then you can follow along that way. Also, feel free to pause the video if I'm typing too fast or if you need to catch up. That's the great thing about videos, is you can kind of pause them to catch up and then join us again. Okay, so I finished typing the two body paragraphs. Now I'm going to type enter and type sincerely. This is called the closing. Notice that it auto-corrected sincerely for me as I started typing it. I made a typo and Word automatically corrected that. So Word will do that with commonly misspelled words. It will auto-correct them, and it's a nice little shortcut feature. After I type sincerely, I'm going to press enter 3 times. And I'm going to type the name of the person who's typing the letter, David Alzacar. And then it asks me to do what's called a manual line break. What that's going to do is it's going to automatically put my cursor right below David Alzacar so I can type his title. It won't add any extra spaces. So typically, Microsoft Word, when you hit enter, starts a new paragraph and adds extra spaces in between your lines. So you can see how Robert Campos, New Day, Neighborhood Center, see how this is kind of all spaced out? Because I hit enter after each line, it started a new paragraph. And when you start a new paragraph in Microsoft Word, it adds, I'm going to show you here, you can go to this line spacing button and it'll kind of show you the spaces after a paragraph. It's 8 points of space, basically, is what it's, every time you hit enter, it adds 8 points of space in between your paragraphs. So it kind of spaces them out a little bit. And that's something that I'm going to show you how to change to remove that extra space after your paragraphs to kind of scrunch your words together. But there's a shortcut to do that as well. If you don't want to change it all at the end, you can hit the shift key and enter on your keyboard, and it will insert what's called a manual return. It takes away that extra space after your paragraph, and it puts the cursor right underneath of the line above it. So now I can type his title below. And I'm going to hit enter again. I'm going to type my initials because those are the reference initials of the person who actually typed the letter. So oftentimes, whoever the letter is from is not necessarily who drafted and typed the letter. So the reference initials are the initials of the person who actually typed the letter. And then I'm going to enter one more time, and I'm going to type the word enclosure. And you will only use the word enclosure if you're enclosing something with the letter. I've seen it a lot with cover letters, and people are enclosing their resumes with the cover letter. I've seen a letter sent with a check, so they put an enclosure because they've enclosed a check in the envelope as well. So you type the word enclosure when there's something in addition to the letter being sent to the recipient. So now what we're going to do is we're going to scroll up to the top here, and I want to remove some spaces here in my inside address. So I am just going to highlight the first 3 lines of text because I want to remove the spaces after the first 3 lines of text. The reason that I'm not highlighting Portland, Oregon is because I do not want to remove the space after Portland, Oregon, because I want to keep that space to separate my inside address and my salutation. The way that you remove the spaces is you highlight the 3 lines and you go to the Home tab in the paragraph group, your line and paragraph spacing button. Click the drop-down arrow and select the command that says remove space after paragraph. Notice what that does. See how it scrunched our lines together? And it took away those extra spaces in between my paragraphs. Now, I could have done a hard return or a manual line break after I typed Robert Campos. I could have done Shift Enter and then typed New Day Neighborhood, Shift Enter. That's another way to do it. Or you can type it as is, go back at the end, and make the corrections as needed. Now, I also need to do a spell check here. I can see the wavy red underline means that I have a spelling error that I need to correct. I can do that quickly by just right-clicking on the word that is misspelled, and then in the dictionary that pops up, select the correct term. You could also check your entire document quickly by going to the Review tab and all the way over to the far left, selecting ABC Check, and it will check the entire document by pulling up the editor pane. This is your editor pane. It's showing that there are 2 misspellings. They've found 2 results. They're spelling errors, not grammar errors. If you click on the spelling, it will show you what the errors are and give you some choices. So it's telling me that David Alzakar's name is spelled incorrectly. Typically, it flags names often. If you would like to add that name to your dictionary, it will not flag it any longer. If that's something that a name that you use commonly and you don't want it to flag it every single time, then add it to your dictionary. If it's an occasional word, you can just ignore it, and it will ignore the misspelling and it won't flag it. I'm going to ignore all of those. It's going to tell me that I'm finished reviewing, and I'm going to do a few more edits here on my business letter before we're finished with it. Another thing that you will typically see when you are creating a business letter is a larger top margin. So this is actually asking us to change our margin, our top margin, to 2.75. So margins are the white space around the outside of your paper. So there's a top margin. It's basically the amount of space from where the text starts to the top of the page. And you can see it, that's the top margin. The left-hand margin would be from where the text starts on the left side to the edge of the page, and so on and so forth around your paper. So you can adjust the amount of white space that is around the edge of your paper. And there's lots of different reasons that you would do that. For the case of business letters, it asks us to change our margins. So I'm on the Layout tab now. I'm going to select Margins. It asks us to make our top margin 2.75 inches. So I need to make a custom margin because that's 2.75 top is not one of my preset choices here. So I need to go to Custom. And then all I'm going to do is just change the top to 2.75. I'm going to leave everything else the default, which is 1. Everything else can stay the same. I'm going to say OK, and then you can notice how it dropped down February and allowed for some more white space at the top of our paper. Now I have 2.75 inches of white space instead of 1 inch. What that allows for is company letterhead. Oftentimes, businesses will type business letters on their company letterhead paper, and they'll be like the name of the business, the address, maybe the phone number, website, different information related to the business at the top of the paper. So by changing the margins, that allows for us to print this letter on company letterhead and not have the words print on top of the letterhead. So that's pretty simple. I'm also going to show you how to create an envelope if you wanted to have an envelope accompany this letter. Pretty simple.